ready to geek out with us all about Hornady's new 110 grain A-tip bullet? If you are, check out the rest of this video. Gavin here from UltimateReloader.com. I would like to introduce you all to my friend Travis Fox. Travis, thank you for joining me here on Ultimate Reloader.
Thanks for inviting me, Gavin.
Travis and I are kind of like two peas in the pod. We both love long-range rifles. We both love shooting of all types. We both ride dirt bikes, and we both like to obsess. So you're probably going to see Travis here on the channel as kind of a regular contributor. We've been having a lot of fun shooting lately, and this was one of our recent projects. We've done things like looking at the EC tuner brake. I'll have a video coming up on that. This time, we took a look at two different cartridges to test out Hornady's 110 grain 6mm A-tip bullet. But before we get into that, a little bit more about Travis. Travis works in the medical field, and he is very precise. He is very meticulous, and when I shoot with him, I feel like I see some of that energy, that OCD, that attention to detail, and that was what made me want to say, hey, would you want to help me collect some data?
Yep. It's pretty fun to do. I like all the physics and the science and all the just did down to the hairs to get everything down to right where it needs to be for all the data that we want and to get the results that we want to make everybody happy.
And you've also served in the local gun community as a board member at the local gun club. I think that's how we met originally.
Yep.
What kind of competitive shooting have you done?
I've done some NRL 22 shooting, done a few local PRSE type matches here, done a couple of F-class matches. But a lot of my interests have just lied in just developing things and trying to just get things just to where they need to be.
And the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, right? You've got a daughter that shoots biathlon and
she has,
rimfire.
yeah.
And, yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's done some competitions in biathlon, and we've had some pretty great experiences traveling around doing that. We've gone to Sweden and a couple other things like that, but she's kind of stepped away from that now, and we're just having fun.
Okay, well, again, please help me in welcoming Travis Fox to the channel. It's been great to hang out, and we're going to do a lot of really cool adventures together. Here's what I thought we'd do in this video. We're going to break down kind of this experience, this little miniature journey that Travis and I have been on. What we did was we picked two different cartridges and two different rifles to test these 110 grain A-tip bullets. So what we're going to do is break down which cartridges we chose and which rifles, why we made those decisions, how we approached load development to produce some results with these bullets, and then I'll talk about some obsessive laboratory measurements that I did here with this equipment, and we'll talk about these bullets, the kind of results that we got, the performance, the consistency, who they're for, who they're not for, that kind of thing. So we're going to start with the cartridges and rifle selection. So you know what they say, you gotta kind of give your guest the best seat at the table, right? You give them the best equipment.
That he did.
When we were shopping around the shop here and looking at what we were going to load up and what we were going to shoot with, you kind of jumped on the chance to take the Dasher.
Yes, I did. Absolutely. I kind of had an idea of I might come out looking good on this one.
Yeah, and you know, this rifle is truly something special. Built on a BAT TR action, that's their tactical action. It's
very
got
nice, very nice.
Benchmark 4-groove barrel, and this is the most accurate rifle that I own. I've shot one group that was down in the zeros, and it can consistently get down there under a 1/4 inch, which is awesome. And then I thought, you know, let's go a little bit bigger on the other side, right? So 6mm Creedmoor, I've done quite a bit of load development and work with that. I had a Howa. And so, you know, with the reloading gear and with the components that we had on hand, these 110 grain A-tip bullets felt like kind of a good match. Now, why don't you walk through kind of how you determined what data that you were going to use, what powder, and then that process of loading your test ammo.
Okay. So I went to Google, of course, and did a little research on the internet, and I was able to come up with kind of what the averages of what guys were using for powders, for bullet weight selections, and then kind of what powders and the amounts, grains, that are going to work for those bullets. We go to these heavier bullets, and Varget seems to be the clear winner there. A lot of people are shooting the Varget. I look at what velocities are getting, what velocities were accurate, do a little bit of data collection on that.
Yep.
Then we come up with what is going to work. So I picked a middle ground on a weight setting, and we just went on either side of that and developed what we could.
Yeah, if you look at the Precision Rifle blog, CalZant has a ton of great data. I used some of that for the 6th Creed as well.
So did I.
Forum.accurateshooter.com, that's where the serious people hang out. You know,
Yeah.
you're going to find some good insights there, and then just looking at kind of low data. So tell us about the equipment that you used and the components.
The components, well, of course, the bullet. We used the, which brass did we have? The Lapua
Alpha.
brass. No, Alpha.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Alpha
Dasher.
brass and Varget. The Varget powder was going to be the driver behind this whole process for this dasher.
And so you had the Area 4190 press, you had A&D FX120i scale, kind of the best of everything, really.
Very nice. Yeah. It made things very simple and made things pretty easy for me.
Yep. On the 6th Creed side, I actually have a little bit less to choose from. I decided to take some Federal Premium once fired brass from the Howa, and to load that up, I was using the Forster coax, had a mixture of RCBS dyes, kind of experimented to see what was going to work. But I kind of did the same thing. I took the data from the PRB article that CalZant had published. I'm using H4350, which I later found out is probably a little bit fast for the heavier side, right? Because the 6mm cartridges like 243 and 6 Creed can go down into the 80s of grains, and they can go up to 115 approximately, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're really on that upper end. But I thought H4350 would be a good place to start because I found a lot of good data. So why don't we talk about your shooting experience first, and then we'll go on to mine.
Sure. Okay, well, we got our loading done, and I started, like I said, we started in that middle range, went down a couple and up a couple loads. 31.1 grains to start off, right off the bat. Shot a great group. And I was like, wow, can I get better? Yes, it did. The 31.3 group, we were able to get a quarter MOA group out of at 100 yards. The 31.5 and the 31.7 were shooting in the high 3s and 4s. Still very respectable groups. Pretty happy.
Why don't we
with all
take a
that.
moment? Actually, we're going to take a moment and show you basically each of those shots for that quarter-inch group in sequence. So I took all of the data that we collected with the magneto speed and the groups, and here it is kind of in summary form. And so when you look at this data, what do you see?
I look at the data, I look at the velocities, I look at the SDs and the group size, and just a few things come clear on this. The average velocity we were getting and the SD that was really good, the group that we got that was great, fell into that velocity range where everybody on the various groups online were telling us that they had good accuracy. And lo and behold, the 2813 velocity gave us an SD of 3, which is awesome, and a group of a quarter minute, which, how can that be wrong? That's great stuff.
And you have an extreme spread of 7 feet per second,
Yeah.
you know, which would be acceptable as an SD if you had to run with that. But I mean, that's the total variation. So I think that's an interesting insight, to basically take a velocity that's working for people and then to work up to that velocity. And that's one clue in the mystery to get to that perfect load.
Yep, it is. And it came very clear that was just a sweet load. The thing that was beautiful about the Dasher, which we all know, is the SDs that we got, as you can see, were single-digit SDs. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So this is a load to take and run to that PRS match with and just run it. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about 6 Creed. The 6 Creed story wasn't quite so simple. So the story started with my Howa 1500, which I put some work into, rebarreling. And when I started to shoot, I wasn't quite seeing the consistency that I wanted to see. I did get 2 groups that were sub half MOA, and I did have SDs down in the 5 foot per second range for some of that data. So it kind of showed promise, but we saw some interesting behavior when we had the magneto speed on. I mean,
Yes.
you even shot it. And what did you see with and without that magneto speed?
Got some bad harmonics.
Yeah.
And bad groups.
Right. And so I was left wondering, the way that the Howa was bedded in my stock, was there an issue there? It was a little unclear what was going on. So I decided to perform an experiment. And that experiment involved my metal lathe. I had an extra preferred barrel blank in 6mm, 1 in 7.5 twist, 4 groove. And so I chambered it up. I chambered it up with the same 6 Creed UR chambering reamer. That was the one from JGS where I had the custom freebore for the Hornady, 108, I think, ELDM, if I remember correctly. And so I put that on the rifle that was initially a 25 Creedmoor, the Zeus Action, the Foundation stock, and I started, to shoot that rifle. And again, I had, in my load development, I was kind of looking at the same powder charge weights, at 40.4, 40.6, 40.8, and 41.0. And I had one group that was pretty good at .342 inches for 5 shots at 100 yards. This is all at 100 yards, by the way. This is a 27-inch barrel I'm running. The Dasher is a 26 for reference. I know you guys are going to ask those questions and wonder. I tried something different with this preferred barrel. I didn't thread the muzzle. I just did an 11-degree target crown, which is something that Gordy suggests for maximum accuracy. Just wanted to remove as many variables as I could. Well, I did a little bit more shooting with that 40.6 load. Really good velocity, almost at 3,000, about 2950, 2960, something like that. But I was looking at online from other sources, where is the best accuracy coming from? And it was much slower powders for this bullet weight. And again, I think part of it was we were thinking of Dasher with its much smaller case capacity. Now we've got 6 Creed, which is a lot more. We're up here in the 40 grain range. And so I think there's definite potential here. Again, multiple sub-half MOA groups and one in the 3s. But I want to see that consistently. Yep. And I think to get that consistent result, I want to go to a slower powder, and I'm thinking Stayball 6.5 is what I'm thinking next.
I think that sounds like a great idea. See what that does.
Yeah. So I think this bullet can definitely work well in 6 Creed. I just have a little bit more work to do to get it down to that obsessive level, of precision and that kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the field shooting. Next, we're going to talk about the lab results. When you're ready to get down to business, out come the white lab gloves, right? When you're handling a calibration weight, you don't want to get fingerprints on there. And so obsessively, I went about my normal bullet test procedures here. And that consists of measuring the diameter, measuring the length, and then looking at weight. And for this, I took 20 bullets and used these same 20 bullets for all of the tests. So let's talk about the tests that I did. First, the diameter test. And this is where we're going to take one reading with a precision micrometer, rotate the bullet 90 degrees, take another reading, and record both of those. So I'm looking at how consistent is the diameter for each bullet, and then we're going to get an overall sort of diameter consistency score. The length is another precision micrometer, except here we're going from the base to the tip. Now these bullets have machined tips, and that means that they're going to be a bit more consistent than a hollow point where, the tip is formed and there's a little bit of a flare. Some people do the knee-plat trimming and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then finally, we have the EJ54D2. This is available from Cambridge Environmental. This is that crazy sensitive scale that can literally sense 0.03 of a grain. It takes a little bit longer to settle in. You have to wait for it to settle and then hit the print button. Goes over USB straight into the spreadsheet. So what did we see from this data? So for the diameter data, we had an average diameter of 264 and 1/10,000th of an inch, so that's good. The SD was 1/10,000th of an inch, and the extreme spread on that diameter data was 3/10,000th of an inch. What's interesting here is I got exactly the same results. This is the third ATIP test that I've done. I've also done the 135 6.5, and I've done the 153 6.5, and they all had 1/10,000th of an inch SD and 3/10,000ths of an inch extreme spread. That is consistency.
Very nice bullets.
Yes. The length data, these are more consistent on length than most bullets for the reasons that I just mentioned. Average length was 1.3241 inches. The SD was 7/10,000ths of an inch, and the extreme spread was 3.2 thousandths of an inch, which is very tight.
Very nice.
Finally, the weight. Check this out. The average weight was 110.01 grains. Talk about hitting the mark. That's what we call accuracy, right? Accuracy is how close are you to the intended value. Precision is how consistent are the values. And speaking of precision, the SD was 0.06 grains, and the extreme spread was 0.24 grains.
Very good. Very good.
Very consistent.
Yeah. This is one of the things that I learned about these bullets in doing the research I did. Mm-hmm. Looking on Accurate Shooter, there were a couple different guys on there that posted that this bullet almost eliminates the need for them to bullet sort. So you look at the time savings you're going to have for that for a bench rest shooter, and they're going to get super consistent bullets right out of the box. You know, no hassle.
Yep.
Load them and shoot them.
Yeah, and speaking of that, this is kind of where I'm going with some of my next builds and my next levels of obsession is I've got a Bix & Andy like down to 1 ounce trigger here in the shop. You know, I've got the BAT Model B bench rest action. It doesn't even have a cutout on the bottom, just a loading port on the side, right? And this is where I want to go, is taking as much of the variables out of the equation, taking the shooter out, taking the support out, and just looking at the performance of the rifle and the various components. So I'm really excited about that. I don't know how far it's going to go, but yeah, if something can save you time and things like brass prep, right? Like nobody likes to do that. The Alpha Brass shot the group in the zeros. It was brand new. You know, that's a time saver right there.
Yeah, it was pretty great stuff.
Yep. So, you know, the data does not lie. These bullets are incredibly consistent, and we showed with the Dasher that just straight up with hardly any load development, you know, we can get absolutely outstanding results. Now, what do you think is next? Because there's always something next, right?
Oh, the sky's the limit, you know. We can test more powders. Test, I really like this bullet, though. I don't know. Kind of hard to go away from.
What about your 243?
Well, we do have the 243.
Yeah.
We'll give that a shot and see what
Yep.
kind of accuracy we can get with that. And
Yep.
Given the way that we've had some of these things work out, we get the right powder, I think that thing will be shooting lights out, and I think we can get some really good groupings with it.
Yeah, as a final thing, you know, I've got a couple builds coming up. Another 6.5x47. Hope you guys catch the first one that I just published. But I'm also going to be looking at 6x47, which is a bit more particular on its tuning, and I think that would be another interesting, you know, application for this bullet. So if you guys have specific ideas, please drop that down in the comments. And again, please help me in welcoming Travis to the channel. And if you have any feedback on things, again, that we should take a look at or whatever, drop that comment and we'll put it into the suggestion box.
I want to say thanks, Gavin, for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to see what we can do.
Awesome.
It's a good time.
Good stuff. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe with notifications because you're not going to want to miss the content I've got coming up. Also, links down in the video description. I'm on Patreon, and I've got Ultimate Reloader shirts at the Ultimate Reloader store. Any support that you show is most appreciated. Thank you again for watching. Until next time, happy shooting and happy reloading.